Hi and welcome to my end of year presentation in 2K, and I hope you enjoy. My two subjects that I chose was history and geography. In history, I chose my mini EE, which is about Nelson Mandela and apartheid, and in geography, I chose a diagram of the water cycle. Ways of knowing. The first one I chose was emotion. And in history, I learned through emotion because it was a sad time when there was apartheid in South Africa and that black people were mistreated. My second way of knowing is imagination. I learned through imagination because, for example, when I read a lot of articles about apartheid, then I started to imagine how horrible the things were and what the black people went through. And the third way of knowing I chose was faith. I learned through faith because you have to. If you don't believe in what you read or what you have learned, then there is nothing that is right, or you don't believe in anything. How did I learn? In history, I learned through reading, and in geography, I learned through looking at different diagrams. And I also learned by believing in what my teacher was teaching me about the specific topics. How I learn is by trusting and hearing the same information by different people. In history, I gained knowledge by researching and reading through primary and secondary sources. And in geography, I gained knowledge by looking at diagrams and seeing how the water cycle potentially works. However, I did not only look at one diagram, I looked at many that had the same information. You will always find some flaws in the way you learn because there are some websites, for example Wikipedia, that you can't trust because people can always go in and add false information. By finding many websites that have the same information, then you have to put in your faith and believe that it is correct. But if you find primary or secondary sources, then they should be correct. Previous knowledge. In both my history essay and the water cycle in geography, I had some previous knowledge, so I already had some general information. But by researching more, I learned in more depth. So it helped by researching more about the different topics. My personal background. In history, the white people in South Africa did not see apartheid as a big problem. However, my personal background is that I think it was a horrible time, and I did not grow up in a world or an environment where black and white people were different. In geography, my personal background did not matter due to it is more factual based. Compare and contrast. The way I learned about my history essay was a lot different from the way I learned about the water cycle. In history, the essay I had to do a lot more research about apartheid and Nelson Mandela, and I did not have to do that in the water cycle because I was basically just looking at diagrams on Google. However, in learning about the water cycle, I looked at diagrams and arrows showing and pointing different places of where the water goes and how it works, and how the water would turn into snow when it's loads of kilometers up in the air where the mountains are, and so on. I cannot do that in history because you need more information on writing. So I couldn't really use diagrams for history as I could in geography. So there are a few things that are different. Thank you for listening, and I hope that you enjoyed.